Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. Today I'm creating on an 8x10 gallery depth wood panel, and these are some of the products that I'll be using, as well as some molds that I just made recently and I did a video on. This was a really fun, very vintage, feminine piece that again has significant meaning for me. One of my daughter's birthday was on April 26th, and so this was for her. So I'm using a variety of mixed media kinds of items, that wood frame and that small canvas, and then this is the flower, and then some scroll work, some little buds, and then that leaf. And then a button and a butterfly. I didn't end up using, those are the Caran-d'Ache water soluble oil pastels. I did not use them. And then this beautiful rice paper. And I'll be sure to link all of the supplies that I used in the video description so that you can check them out. I'm going to be applying my rice paper with my Liquitex matte medium. And I'm being fairly generous here. Oftentimes I think I'm not using enough matte medium, and so I'm struggling to get my rice paper to actually adhere. And I apologize for the blurriness there. The camera doesn't like the white. It wants color to focus on. So, but that should be all gone now. I also apply a layer of matte medium on the top. I start from the center of the design and then move outward, and that helps to eliminate the wrinkles. I did get wrinkles, and I don't mind having wrinkles because when I'm doing mixed media, often I'm applying some glazes and some other things on top of the rice paper. In this case, I did not touch this design at all. I did not use acrylic paint. And on the actual substrate here, or on top of the rice paper, and it really turned out beautiful. This was a another very, very healing piece of art for me. So it was just a pleasure to make. And I hope that you enjoy. So I'm just getting my embellishments out here ready to work with. I did pre-gesso them just with one layer of gesso, just so that the acrylic paint will stick to it. And then these are some of the paints that I'll be using. And you will see that I do bring in some other colors as I move along. I don't have I need to get some more acrylic paint in some pink shades, because I really am struggling lately with my mixed media pieces where I'm trying to use a variety of shades of pink, and I really just don't have anything in my stash. So this was super bright. And so I do come in with another shade of pink here in a little bit. And do another layer on top of this. So yeah. And then I will be also doing a raw umber glaze over these pieces, and the results on this flower were just beyond my wildest dreams. The way that it caught on the edges and in the little overlapping parts was just incredible. Really, really beautiful. And then this is that second pink that I brought in. It's a little bit deeper, but not too dark. I didn't really want it to get all dark because I was going to do a raw umber glaze, and I knew that would bring in some dark that kind of naturally. And then I'll also be doing the same thing on the little rosebud. These molds were really fun to make, a little bit of a learning curve just because I haven't done them in a while, but really a pleasure. And what I was just showing you there was that color was now actually matching the flowers that are in the rice paper, the colors. So that was a really good choice. And then just painting the little bud. I just loved the rosebuds. So beautiful. So if you haven't already checked out that video where I do the mold making, I would encourage you to look at it. It is phenomenal, really fun process. And so here I'm coming in with some raw umber fluid acrylic and painting my other elements. So I'm going to be painting this little scrolly thing, the button and the butterfly in this raw umber. And then I do come in with, I believe it is a raw sienna. I didn't make a note of it. I apologize. A raw sienna, kind of a light brown right there that you see, just to kind of lighten it up. It was really, really dark. I love using the fluid acrylics for this purpose because even though they're a little bit more on the spendy side, a little goes a long way, and they're really convenient, and they're just really pigmented and a fabulous product. So they're just coming in around the edges just to make sure I don't have any white bits showing. And then the button was just, I have a friend who gave me a whole stash of old jewelry, and that I have just tons of it. So I really hope to be returning to more of this style of art. It's actually one of my favorites, where you kind of create a mixed media assemblage of different elements. They can be chipboard, wood bits, metal bits, the clay as you're seeing here. There's just all kinds of things that you can do. And I just always pre-gesso my pieces, and then I can paint them any color that I want. So it's super fun. I really love the dimension. This piece really just far exceeded my expectations. It was really, really cool. So now I'm going to come in and paint my greenery. So the stem on this little rosebud, and I'm using my DecoArt Premium paint in sap green hue. And then I'll be also applying some of the green gold, also DecoArt Premium paint. And then I'll be painting that leaf bundle there too. Really beautiful. I can't wait to do more molds and get some stuff in my stash. They're great to use, and you can kind of make your molds based on what is kind of on your heart or what you're seeking to create. And then they're just there and ready to use, and they dry super fast as well. And I do come in with the green gold also on top of this leaf as well. And that's the green gold there. Having a really hard time finding a supply of the DecoArt Premium paints that I can get that aren't going to take me forever and a day to get. I'm really running low on my acrylic paint these days. Not able to really get my stash back up, but it is what it is. And here I'm gonna, this is just a small wood frame, and I'm gonna go ahead and paint it also with the raw umber. It is also pre-gessoed. And again, the importance of pre-gessoing, especially on wood, is that if you pre-gesso, your acrylic paint is not going to soak into the wood. And when that happens, it actually lightens the color. But it also, it creates a nice seal on the piece. The raw umber ended up being super dark here too. So I do the same thing coming in with the raw umber, not the raw umber, the raw sienna, with a layer here and there on top of it as well. The other thing that the gesso does is it allows your acrylic paint to actually stick. If it doesn't have anything to adhere to, it has the potential to flake off, and we definitely don't want that in a beautiful project. So and this project was, because I had everything pretty much mapped out. I don't always, sometimes I'm just very creating intuitively, but this one I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do. So I had everything laid out. I had my composition decided. And so this only took me about an hour from start to finish. So pretty incredible. So there I'm just showing you a close-up of those bits. The detail on that scroll work is just amazing. And then I am going to come in with that darker, or that other shade of pink on my little rosebud. I forgot to do that earlier. But the final touch on these was the raw umber glaze, was just amazing, as you'll be able to see in the close-up pictures at the end of the video. And then here I just realized that I had not painted the center of that flower, so I just grabbed for that raw sienna and colored that a little bit yellow. Just a little bit of a pop. And then here I'm going to do my glaze. So that's the raw umber fluid acrylic from Golden and my golden glazing medium. another supply that I'm almost out of, really hoping I can get my hands on it. And I had quite a stock before this pandemic started. So thankfully I did, because things are super hard to get right now. So I don't know. I can't run out of that stuff though. So here I'm just giving it that glaze, and it's just incredible how the color, that dark color, seeps into the crevices of this textured flower. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And an unexpected surprise that I found in doing this is that as I was wiping it with the baby wipe, it was removing some of the pink paint and leaving some white highlights, which was actually really beautiful. And I think it really added to the dimension of this flower. So I was super glad that that happened, probably because the paint was it was dry, but it was not completely set. Acrylic paint does take a little bit of time to set. And then doing the same on that leaf and the rosebud. The leaf, you can't really see the raw umber because it is such a dark color to start with, but I did it anyway. And then the rosebud, so beautiful. And then I just wanting to put a clean paper towel down so that I don't get anything messy with any paint residue there on my table. And then what I did there is I took a piece of just cardstock and I used an embossing folder that just has some script writing on it. And I ran that through my die cut machine and embossed it and created this raised texture paper. And I'm using that as the backdrop for my frame because I'm going to be putting a sentiment on it. And then I'll be building my composition with the molds and things around that frame. So it really added a lot of dimension and a little bit of interest to the piece. And then I'm going to be cutting out that sentiment with my my little cutter there. And the sentiment says, "In your darkest moments, let beauty find its way." And, you know, there are often circumstances in our lives, obviously, that we didn't ask for, that we didn't anticipate, that we often don't know how to reconcile. And what I found in the darkest parts of my journey is that beauty does find its way, even through the darkest times, if we allow it. That's not to say that there's not a time of deep mourning and adjustment and grieving and anger and all of those things that we go through as humans. They're all very natural components of grief and of surviving hard times. But I believe that when we move through that and we allow our hearts to be open to the beauty that is there for us in that kind of redemptive process, that it's quite magnificent. And I've experienced it myself time and time again. So I know of which I speak. So now I'm coming in with my raw umber glaze again, and then doing a glaze over that canvas piece, because I didn't want it to be super bold. I didn't want it to take over the piece. And so this was really perfect. And what you can see is that the raw umber glaze obviously settles into that script, that raised script, and just highlights some of it. Just absolutely gorgeous. But what I found is it had toned down the color, dulled down the color so much that it was not what I was really after. And I wanted to be able to bring out the blue in the rice paper background. And so I used my Prima marketing wax. This is the Patina Blue. It's a new color to me and absolutely phenomenal. And it matches that blue up in the top part of the canvas. And so I decided to get my Bow Bunny stitch stamps out and did some stamping just around the edges. I like that sewn look. And so this was super fun to do. And so I'm doing a double stamp. You can't see the other one because I haven't used the other stamp, so it's completely clear. You can see it. And I'm using my Vintage Photo Distress ink. And it is a water-soluble ink, so you do have to be sure that you're not going to put any moisture over the top of it without sealing it. And as I referenced in the beginning of the video, I didn't do much at all to the the base here. So I wasn't at risk of having that ink run at all. So it is permanent once it's dried and sealed. But again, I didn't have to really worry about that. And I placed it here in the lower section. My composition involving the frame did cover that up in the end, but it's all fine. Not a big deal, not a great loss at all. So I'm going to be setting that canvas into that frame using my, what was this glue called? I'm sorry, I'll have to link it. It's not in front of me right now, but I just kind of stuck it in the edges there of that frame and then put my canvas in. And then now I'm going to work on the placement. Brought in a little piece of lace, just enough to just really make this this focal image really pop and stand out. And I really, really loved the effect. The rice paper does have a quote on it. I can't quite tell what it says right now. And it was really beautiful, but it just wasn't what I was focusing on in this piece. So I strategically just planned my my focal image to cover that up, which is just fine. I loved the flowers and the background on this rice paper more. So in here, I'm just going to apply that frame with my Liquitex Heavy Gel. And the reason why you want to use heavy gel is because when you're working with something that's a little bit heavier and more dimensional, it just sticks a lot better. And it does give you a little bit of repositioning time because it doesn't dry instantly. And so it's a great supply to use. And I have never had any problem with things falling off. So it's pretty awesome. So I did pull some of this little rose viney stuff from my stash. I struggled a little bit to get it around that piece of clay mold there. And so you see me fussing a little bit with that. It wasn't too terribly bad, but I had a hard time having those flowers kind of stay in place. And I'll just let you kind of watch and see how I fuss and fiddle with that. I do apply some glue and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like there, it just kind of pops back off. So I do eventually get it all in place. You just kind of have to fuss with it a little bit. And then this is, the Fabri-Tac, that's the glue. And so I'm just going to let that set, and then it'll be fine when I come back to it. Oh, there we go. I forgot what I had done here. So I just reverse wrapped that part of the vine and tucked it under the vine, that flower, so that it would actually stay, and then used a little bit of that glue to make those leaves kind of stay up with the flower where they belong. So pretty cool, pretty awesome. And I'm going to set that aside and continue to work on my other elements. Apologize, it's been about 5 days or so since I actually did this project. I've been focusing on some other things in my life and my household, so I am delayed in getting my voiceover done. So I'm trying to catch up with what I was doing as well. So I appreciate your patience in that. And then this mold was one I made some time ago, the last time I did a session of clay mold making. And so I used resin on this one in my mold, and that's why you could see me kind of bend it, because it didn't dry hard. I think it was the mix that I had done. It just didn't set hard. But I'm using my Liquitex Heavy Gel again there to adhere that. And then I come in with my tiny brush to get all the glue boogers out, because even though the gel will dry clear, it does leave some gloppy bits, and I don't like that. So I do try to get rid of as much of it as I can. And they're just kind of building my composition, wanting to make sure that I had room for my sentiment and that it was going to look pleasing to go where I had intended it to go. And I just stamped this with, this is a stamp from Unity Stamp Company. I stamped it on a piece of scrapbook paper and just adhered it with my my heavy gel as well. I did emboss it. It's stamped with Vintage Photo Distress ink, and then I embossed it with clear embossing powder. So when you look at when you see it close up, it does have some dimension to the sentiment, which is really beautiful. And then going to go ahead and apply my other elements with my heavy gel. And then again, getting rid of that, the boogers, even though the flower does overlap these leaves, this leaf in the end. I wasn't quite sure. Often when you're moving through a project, things do shift and change. So I didn't end up needing to fuss with that leaf too much because it was going to be covered over in large part. Going ahead and applying my heavy gel to my flower. And then I applied it to the whole thing. And then I thought, well, I don't really need it on the bottom side there because it's going to be over the leaf. But by putting the gel there, it allowed it to make contact with that leaf because it was at the same level. So it was perfect. And then just giving it a good press. And then I just do set it aside to dry and let it completely set here in a few minutes. And then I'll be working next on the little bit of elements that I'm going to put under the frame on top of that lace, which included the butterfly, the button, and then some little tiny flowers from that vine stuff, and some teeny tiny little buds, which were just beautiful. Really, really fun. It's the little tiny elements are kind of hard to work with because they are so small. But in this project, it was so well worth the effort and the fussing. So I really, really love how it turned out. And I felt like it was a good balance and it wasn't overdone. But I hope that you enjoy the video, and I hope that it inspires you to go out of your comfort zone and create something that is not your norm, because there are always beautiful surprises in that process. At least I have found. And when I connect with my heart in a piece, I always am super happy with how it turns out because it's congruent with how I feel and what my perspective is on something. And so I really like that. I love that about art, the expressive quality of being able to kind of put our heart out there and have the artwork match what our internal experiences are, whether those experiences are positive or if they're harder and more of a struggle. The artistic process is incredibly healing just for the expressive ability that we have in being able to kind of get messy and create and just kind of live out of our heart in that moment. So here I'm just applying my elements with my heavy gel again. That's the Liquitex heavy gel. And I did go ahead and stick a couple little leaves under that button as well. And then applying those little flowers with some heavy gel in the little pockets of space there. And you can see there off to the left, that tiny, tiny little rosebud. Yeah, I'm going to put that little rosebud on. It's so cute. And then there's even a little brown two-stemmed thing there. It looks like it's just a speck on my desk, but that's a little tiny, like a little bud thing that doesn't even have any flower on it. Like it hasn't opened at all. And I did use that too, because I just loved that. I loved the progression of the growth of these flowers. It was really, again, representative of the process for me and why I created this piece and kind of what my heart was behind it. So super cool. And so there's just a close-up. Absolutely beautiful. I love the white highlights on the flower. I just thought it really added to the vintage look of the entire composition. So now I'm going to come in with my Distress ink in Vintage Photo again, and I'm going to come around my edges. I didn't come in with my Soho Black Soft Pastel because I didn't want to go that dark with my edging. I wanted it to be a little bit more mellow. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you'll come back, you'll check out my channel, like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I hope that you have a great day. I hope that things are good for you, that you are healthy and well. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Leave me a comment if you'd like. Thank you. Bye-bye.